Hello and welcome to the JSA Studio. I'm your host, as always, Nathan, and today I'm coming at you with the Week 4 predictions for all of the Big Ten teams, except Wisconsin and Oregon, as they have bye weeks this week. But before we get into all of that, I am going to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. And now with the intro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to get started with, of course, the sole Big Ten game on Friday. It is actually probably the most interesting game to me, and that is Illinois versus Nebraska. Now, ultimately, I think Nebraska wins, but it is damn close. It is going to be a close game. I don't believe that the spread should be 7.5. I don't think Nebraska is that good. However, I do think they will get the W. Dylan Raiola and his level of play is going to be the key in this game. This is going to be Dylan Raiola's first real test. Illinois is not a team that is going to beat themselves. Nebraska is going to have to play a clean game, and they're also going to have to make plays. Dylan Raiola, as I kind of already said, hasn't been tested so far this year. Not really, in my opinion. Nebraska is not a test defensively for him. Ultimately, I think this game is going to come down to if Dylan Raiola can make the plays to keep drives going and score touchdowns, not field goals. I feel like Illinois is going to come out and they're going to score somewhere between 17 and 24 points. And if Nebraska can score more than that, which Illinois' defense is pretty solid, they're a solid football team all around. I think there's a definitive possibility that Nebraska could win the game in like a 17-14 kind of game. However, that is probably playing more into what Illinois wants to do than what Nebraska wants to do. I think Illinois has more potentially top-end talent than Nebraska, but I think Nebraska has more all-around talent. And what do I mean by that? Okay, if we go position group by position group, at the quarterback position, I lean towards Dylan Raiola. However, Altmaier, the quarterback for Illinois this year, has been playing fantastically. He might be the better, in fact, he's not might be, he is the better football player right now. However, with Dylan Raiola, he's got another 2 years of college football left to play after this year. He is absolutely someone that I think is going to end up being in the 1-1 conversation. Luke Altmaier appears to me to be somebody that has a decent chance, if he continues to play efficiently like he has been, to get drafted in like the 6th, 7th round. However, right now at the college level, Altmaier is probably the better quarterback, but if Dylan Raiola rises to the occasion, he can just do things that Altmaier can't do. If we look at the running back position, Nebraska is loaded there. I really like their top two guys, Johnson and Dowell. Illinois, not as high on their running backs. Fagan, I believe, is their number one guy in terms of the guy that gets the most touches. Not overly impressed with him, so I think Nebraska is better there. If we look at the wide receiver position, this is actually clear cut in favor of Illinois. Zachary Franklin is a day 2 pick, in my opinion. I really like Zachary Franklin. I liked him when he played at UTSA. I like him here at Illinois. Pat Bryant is another guy for Illinois that's been playing really well so far this year. Nebraska's wide receivers just aren't there yet. I don't think they have as much talent at that position as Illinois does. When it comes to the offensive line, I think Nebraska is significantly better on the interior than Illinois. However, I think Illinois at the tackle positions is significantly better than Nebraska. Have not been all that impressed with Nebraska's offensive tackle play so far this year. All in all, that's probably a push, but I would lean, in terms of style of the way that this game is going to be played, I would lean more towards Nebraska having that advantage in the offensive line, because, as we'll get to next, Illinois' defensive line is not that impressive to me. I think Nebraska has a significantly better defensive line. So when you're looking at matchups in this game, and this is the main reason why I think Nebraska is a better all-around team is because Nebraska has the better defensive line, especially along the interior, and Illinois has the worse offensive line, although slightly, but dramatically worse along the interior. So I think there's a significant possibility that matchup is going to be what slows down Illinois offensively to the point where Nebraska can win the game scoring in the low 20s. If you look at the linebacking core, I think Nebraska is significantly better there. And when you get to the secondary, Illinois is significantly better. Ever since Belima has gotten there, they've had fantastic secondaries. That has continued until this very day. But overall, I think the style of this game is going to benefit Nebraska more than it is going to benefit Illinois. And because of Dylan Raiola's potential to play above and beyond scheme, I do think Nebraska has the significantly higher ceiling of these two teams. However, Illinois is not going to be a team that beats themselves. Nebraska is going to have to come in. They're going to have to play a clean, disciplined game, which that's what they've been doing. But the wheels could fall off the bus any second, okay? This is a close matchup, but because of the actual matchups when you get down into the nitty-gritty of this, and because of the difference in talent levels in terms of like an NFL perspective in the quarterback position, I am going to go with Nebraska to win the game. I'm not going to give you a point spread. I don't feel confident enough in either of these teams so far to give you a point spread. However, I think 7.5 is a little bit ridiculous. I do think that it will be closer than that. Moving on to the noon slate on Saturday, not a whole lot to talk about here. Marshall at Ohio State. Ohio State's going to win, probably cover. Charlotte at Indiana. Indiana's going to win, probably cover. Villanova at Maryland. Maryland is going to win, probably cover as well. This is not a very close set of games here. If you're going to watch football and you aren't a fan of these three teams, you probably aren't going to watch the Big Ten this week. However, this is, starting to get to the point with these teams where I'm starting to figure out who they are. I think Indiana is a solid football team. I think Ohio State is the best team in the Big Ten, and I think Maryland is perhaps a team that's going to struggle to get to a bowl game. Moving on to a slightly more interesting time frame here in Saturday at the 3:30 time slot. Kicking off, obviously, this is a big game. You can make the argument from like a national perspective. This is the second biggest game played this weekend behind Tennessee and Oklahoma. Michigan hosting USC. The spread is USC minus 4.5. It was sitting at 6.5 when I made the graphic yesterday, but now it has shifted. Today is Friday. It has now shifted to 4.5. And that is a little bit weird. As a Michigan fan, it is maybe telling that Vegas, who very often knows something that we, being the general public, don't know, because the only reason they would shift it 2 points in Michigan's favor is to invite you to bet on USC, meaning that they set it at 6.5 and a lot of people were betting for Michigan, so they're moving it down to 2.5 to get people to bet on USC, meaning if you bet on USC, Vegas keeps your money if Michigan covers. So by moving the line 2 points, which is a pretty dramatic movement, especially in a game like this, that might be a signal that Vegas thinks Michigan is either going to cover or win outright. And I will talk about what I think is going to happen in that game here in a moment after I get through these other three games. Kent State at Penn State. Don't have anything to say. Penn State's going to win. They might cover. They might not. I don't care. I'm also going to skip Rutgers and Virginia Tech. I'm going to go down to UCLA at LSU. LSU is going to cover. They're going to destroy UCLA. They are a very, very bad football team. And even though I don't think LSU is a good football team by any stretch of the imagination, average versus ass means that average wins by 30 points. Circling back, Rutgers at Virginia Tech. This is a big game. Not for anybody that doesn't care about Big Ten football, but I care about Big Ten football. So, Rutgers at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is not a good ACC team, and I don't think Rutgers is a good Big Ten team either. However, Rutgers has a significantly better chance to make a bowl game if they win this game than if they lose it. Rutgers is 2-0. They had a bye week last week. They are playing a Virginia Tech team that did not have a bye week. So Rutgers has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Now, that can be a detriment sometimes. However, I don't think it will be. I think it'll actually help Rutgers. However, Virginia Tech is, I don't think they're a good team, but they're not bad. They lost to a bad Vanderbilt team in overtime during the first week of the season. They then handled business against Marshall and Old Dominion. Rutgers, I think, might just flat out and straight up be the better team. However, Virginia Tech has more in terms of just athleticism, has way more athletes on their roster than Rutgers does. And that could be the difference in a game like this. When it comes to predicting the winners of this game, Penn State's going to win. UCLA, LSU's going to win. USC at Michigan, I just think USC is a significantly better team. I am not of the belief that Michigan is a good football team. I think that Texas, who stopped playing football at halftime against Michigan, easily could have dropped 70 had they kept their foot on the gas on this defense. I think this defense is poorly coached. I think there is not a single player that looks better from last year's team to this year's team, including all of the layovers from last year's team to this year's team. The only player that I could argue maybe got better was Derek Moore. Josiah Stewart has been playing really well as well. However, he played really, really well last year, so I don't know if he improved really, so to speak. All in all, I just think USC is a relatively significantly better football team than Michigan. I think USC wins. I think they stop playing football halfway through the third quarter, and I would be relatively shocked if Michigan kept it close. I would be astonished if they won. And I want Michigan to win. When I'm watching the game, I'm going to be rooting for Michigan to win because I'm a Michigan fan. But when I'm doing these picks, I'm trying to be objective. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in Michigan and their ability to win this football game. Rutgers at Virginia Tech. I do think Virginia Tech pulls it out, but I would not be surprised if Rutgers won that game. They're going to be able to run the football. I don't know if Virginia Tech is going to be able to stop them. The question becomes, how far can Rutgers, in terms of athleticism, punch above their weight class? Because Virginia Tech's got athletes, and Rutgers doesn't really. They've got some guys. Kyle McGunguy is really good. I get it. Okay, they've got some guys. But Virginia Tech, in terms of average player that is actually going to play, is a significantly more athletic team than Rutgers. And I just think that matters. So I'm going to predict Virginia Tech to win that game. However, I will be pulling for Rutgers. Moving on to the Saturday late slate, as I like to call it. We kick this off with Northwestern at Washington. Washington is a 11.5-point favorite. That tells me a lot of what Vegas thinks about Washington. Washington lost last week to a Washington State team that I don't honestly think is all that good. I think Washington's a better team than Washington State, but weird things happen in rivalry games. And as I said in the reaction video on Monday, that also was the revenge of the Pac-12, so to speak. And Washington being this big of a favorite is a little bit surprising to me because I still think Northwestern is a well-coached football team that won't beat themselves. However, there is a significant possibility that Washington's going to come out pissed off and they're just kind of handle business pretty easily. Iowa at Minnesota, Iowa -3. They had Iowa State beat last week. Their own mistakes and their own ability to move the ball consistency on offense is what did them in. Minnesota, I think, is a comparable team to Iowa State. I think they are going to have a similar game plan, which is run the ball, play defense. However, Minnesota does not have the upside on offense that Iowa State does. So Iowa probably favored by 3. I think that's a pretty solid line. Michigan State at Boston College. I don't know what to make of Michigan State, but I do think Boston College is a fantastic football team. I think they're probably the second best team in the ACC. I have not seen a whole lot out of Clemson. That makes me think Clemson is actually a good football team. I think they got bodied by Georgia, and again, I think Georgia stopped playing football at a certain point in that game and could have hung 50 if they wanted to. Georgia had a tough game versus Kentucky, only won by a point, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that Clemson is very good. Getting back on topic, Michigan State, Boston College. Boston College, second best team in the ACC. Michigan State, not anywhere near the top 7 teams in the Big Ten. And they're only a 7-point dog. That's really interesting to me because I don't think Michigan State has played a team that can take advantage of their flaws defensively like I think Boston College can. I think Boston College is going to come out motivated as fuck in this game. I think they're going to want to make a statement. They took Missouri, who is a top 10 team in the country and legitimately one of the 10 best teams in the country, in my opinion, to the wire. That game went right down to the last snap. I think Boston College is a very, very good football team. And I don't know what Michigan State is. If they win this game, I'm going to know. If they lose this game but look at least competent, then I will have more faith in them going forward. Purdue at Oregon State, I think that line is ridiculous. I think Purdue is awful beyond belief. I think Oregon State is actually a solid football team that fell victim to a rivalry game and also a Oregon making a statement game and also Oregon figuring it out kind of game as well. I think they hit the trifecta of bad shit that can happen to you. As far as who wins, I do have Washington beating Northwestern. I do think Iowa is going to hold off Minnesota. I think Boston College is going to beat Michigan State. I think Purdue is going to get ass blasted by Oregon State. That's just kind of the way that I see these teams performing. Could be wrong, could be correct. Who knows? I've been more correct than wrong so far this year. But that's just me, and what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. And it's at this point I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagree with me at any point, or you just have something to say, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comment section below. And now with the outro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to say, and that's that I'll see you next time.